You are watching
Rarely Reserved,
a Star Wars Shatterpoint podcast.
I am Charles, also known as Omnus.
I am Sin, also known as many things, actually.
Yeah.
But today, just Sin.
I promise not to call you Goth Elsa.
Yeah. What? That's a new one.
It's the cold joke.
Because I'm cold all the time?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, she embraces the cold. I try actively to be warmer.
Yes. You battle with your inner ice witch at times.
Well, Matt always jokes that I got so used to the temperature down in hell. So.
Yes. If you spend too long in a warm temperature, then everything else feels cold. How I
freezing up here.
That. But speaking of cool shit, we got some Shatterpoint stuff to talk about. I left out some models. I still haven't set up a camera that points down, but I thought it would be fun for you to see stuff. So I was thinking about the errata that's right around the corner, and we saw that snowtroopers were on it. So even though these guys don't look like snowtroopers, I figured I'd finish up the Veers box, which I know you've already painted. Your Veers box looks super dope, but I think I've knocked each one of these models off of their base.
Knocked? Unintentionally?
Yes, unintentionally.
That's so funny.
Because I decided I wanted to just paint their bases first.
Okay.
And so they're glued onto the base afterwards. But the lieutenant, I did not magnetize them. And so I was sticking them on putty on top of paint bottles so that I could just have the magnets pointing out. And I put too much pressure, popped him off. And then I think I've knocked both of these guys off at least once from accidentally dropping either them or dropping something onto them while they were on the painting table.
I still remember one of our the very first time we hobbied together, you were like, how do you glue the magnets to the bottom of the bases? And I was like, well, I always pre-do all of the magnets on the bases, and then I put the model on the base. And I think I said something like, well, sometimes I'm dumb enough to put the model on first and then put the magnets on. And
it was way worse. I don't remember exactly what you said, but it was something like, well, unless you're an idiot, you just magnetize them first.
I'm sorry.
Something like that. I don't remember exactly what you said, but I was like, I think she just called me an idiot. Because I was always thinking I always end up setting them between paint bottles or something to because you don't want it down, right? Because you're trying to let the super glue dry. But then I don't always want them on their side. Yeah. Right. Because sometimes you end up with the super glue, you put super glue on there and then the magnet is drifting down or something like that. So I was just trying to make conversation while we were all hobbying, and you were like, well, if you're a fucking moron, you would, you glue the magnets afterwards. But any normal human being that thinks, and plans and strategizes, then you just glue the magnets first. And so I genuinely think about it every single time I do a model now, because most of the time I still do magnets after. And I'm like, yep, I'm a moron. Sin thinks I'm dumb.
Whenever I get a box, I would take all the bases out, and then I get a baking sheet. Yeah. And I flip them all over, and then when you magnet onto a baking sheet, it holds it in place. Yeah. So that they don't come off or anything. And it works really well, and you can orient stuff really easily because it's magnetized through the plastic to the baking sheet. It's very efficient. And I just assumed everyone did it that way. And I learned that that's not true. Well,
because I spent many years working on models before magnetizing, right? And so magnetizing has only been something I don't think I was magnetizing models at my first Adepticon. And so, we're talking post-COVID, first Adepticon, I was still traveling in a pluck foam case. After that is when I got my first A case and switched to magnetizing. And so when I did Lone Star Open, I'm pretty sure I traveled with an A case. And so, yeah, it hasn't been that long, maybe 3 to 4 years of magnetizing. So I never had it in my rhythm where I magnetize first, because a lot of the times I'll kind of do the model and then figure out what I want the basing to be like. My system is so wonky because I'm like, I'd like to do the bases separate, but I always feel like the models stick to the base worse if I paint the base first.
Yeah.
And
no, I'm extremely anal retentive. And so like when I do, like if I was doing this model, before I would do the base, I like put a little bit of paint on his feet, and then I put his feet down and I see where the feet markings are, and then I masking tape those two spots and leave his feet unpainted so that I can use plastic glue and perfectly align him. And let me tell you, this is not worth doing. It's I do it because I am a psychopath, but it is in general easier to just super glue them.
Yeah, I've always many times I've tried to figure out a good way to do that where I like try to mark the spot. And in these, like, because like you can kind of see on the snowtroopers, like I tried to make sure I didn't have any of the additional basing where I was going to put the feet. So I did like math out where the feet was going to be and that sort of thing so that they'd have a spot. But these guys have just had a rough time of it already where they've all been knocked off their bases. But I'm just trying to be prepared for the errata. And I felt like the teal and black ended up working pretty well in these guys.
I like the like textured stuff on top of the regular Shatterpoint stuff. I think my favorite basing that I ever did was a Astra Militarum artillery team. And it's like a huge base, and it's all these little dudes around like a gun thing. Yeah. But since there's so much room, I made it super muddy, and then I fashioned a little foot-shaped thing, and I made wet footprints going through the whole thing. And it ended up looking way better than I thought. It took forever, but it looked way better than I thought it would, because it did look like a bunch of little, World War II soldiers mudding their way through the trenches. I'll show pictures too.
I've definitely seen things like back in the War Machine days, because there were some things that were like tanks and that sort of thing, and seeing things where it's like had definitely like treads through the ground, and so the ground is like disturbed behind the treads and things like that. But also, I've been meaning to do some rebasing. And so this was one of the first ideas. It's just these little crate kits that come in it's a Legion objective box. But I had felt like both Luminara and Ahsoka just kind of had too boring of bases, and I was wanting to redo it. So I decided to just do both of them. So it's totally fresh base.
Nice.
And the reason why it has the gun on top is I noticed that particular, you can kind of see it on that one. This Legion kit, it looks like some of the holes were not, like some of the lines on the top of that box weren't very deep. And so like it was just annoying me, so I kind of put something on top of it.
That makes sense, honestly.
But I liked my girls, and I liked the new bases. And then these were a little bit more fun because I was trying to pick stuff that would work on. So Mando, it's like, I think it's a crate of thermal detonators.
Yeah, it really looks like it.
And so I thought that would be a cool one for the Mando guy. Again, spice up the base, since he's like my most played model.
This feels like a moment in a video game where you like auto restock as you walk past something. Very nice.
I assume Grogu's just like lifting up the thermal detonators and putting it into his bag. And he's like, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, a little guy with a baby carrier full of thermal detonators. That sounds so
Well, he just like force pushes them at people, right? Like that would be sweet.
I'm like, oh, he's got a ball. Oh, he's got a ball.
Maybe that's when he rolls the 4 expertise and gets auto 5 damage. That's a Grogu thermal detonator.
That makes sense.
But then this one, I glued this thing together, realized it was kind of too big to really go on the smaller base. And so I was like, what's something I can do with it? And I was like, oh, I kind of wanted to do something with Wrecker. And I was like, it fits on his. And originally I was going to have Omega like on the ground still, because they were like back to back or something. But then I was having trouble fitting in it. And then I was like, wait a second, Omega can just be on top of it.
Yeah.
And so that was when I got to the game store and played on Saturday. That was one of the first compliments that they really thought.
Rocks, yeah.
They really thought that was cool.
It gives it a really cool like silhouette too.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. Like he's like, shooting an arrow from over his head. Very cool.
And I got to Shatterpoint him in my first game with him.
Yo.
And they did good things. So yeah, I was pretty happy. I really like it. So if you're looking for the thing, it's just Legion objective tokens. And they come with a bunch of different little things. And there's one that's like, looks like a crate of like vials, like it's poison or medicine or something. There's another one that's just kind of like a tub or like a sealed container, like you'd imagine they were carrying around like a heart or something in it. And then there's a few bigger things that probably would only work with like the droids or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. It was nice to spice up, and I'd had a couple of them and was meaning to use them, and so I'm glad I got around to that. And that felt good. I had not worked on a Shatterpoint model in a hot minute.
That's so fair. They look awesome. No, I really like all of them. Heck yeah.
I haven't played Mando yet, but that's going to be... I'll probably play him in the next game, but...
Solid.
Yeah, fun little progress. Maybe inspire you a little bit when you get to maybe work on Morgan here, hopefully not too long from now. I think we're a month out, a little less than a month out from the new models, so...
Time is a flat circle. Huh?
Yeah. Maybe we'll talk about the models a little bit in the bonus episode, but I haven't played any of the new stuff yet, even though like all the cards are revealed at this point. They've spoiled everything. So we're on the hunt for the new stuff. But I have kind of an interesting topic for us this week.
I'm ready.
Now that we're through hobbying. But the topic is alternate formats. And I'll preface this with been trying something and very excited about it. Okay. But I want to talk about like why we got here. Because like one of the questions that came up in the game store was like, what is the goal of this? Like, why would you even want like an alternate format? Like, what's the importance of it? And I'll say the first thing that actually inspired this was I feel like Shatterpoint conventions have really struggled to have an alternate format that people give a fuck about.
Oof.
Like one of the first things that I think was done on like the first Adepticon and has been like other conventions have tried to grab it was this like adversaries and allies format where you're kind of like the concept is like you'd play like half rebels, half empire, right? And then like see how it works. But you're trying to find rules that fit that. And really what it ends up being is you're trying to find like what ends up actually happening is people are trying to figure out, well, I'm playing scouts, but that lets me play, or, you know, something where it just gets wonky and you're like, you're still trying to play the most synergistic team possible. And you're just like, there's only a few things that really like fall into that gimmick in the system where you're like, my faction is this, but you know, it kind of, the way that people are building it naturally defeats the purpose. And a lot of the time it doesn't make sense and nobody's understanding it. So it just doesn't end up being super popular.
Yeah.
The team events are all good. I feel like team events are largely successful. And like even the team up thing that Adepticon does where it's like 2 people playing a squad each, like on a table at a time, is a cool format. But yeah, there's been a struggle to have like another thing.
Sure.
And one of the most common things from like all of the other games, right? And I'm sure you experienced this in Age of Sigmar, right? Where it's, you play different point levels.
Yes.
Right? Where you like, you know, if we go back to Star Wars Minis, my first miniatures game, we played 100 points, 150 points, and 200 points. 150 was the main format, so we played that one the most. But we would shake things up with the smaller format, which would push certain things up or down. It was never like the best format. Sure. But we'd shake things up, or we'd play 200 points, which was larger, and it made some things that were a little bit more expensive feel more viable, and it just shook things up a little bit.
Yeah.
And so you obviously, like, say in, like, Age of Sigmar, you have, like, Spearhead and 1,500 points and 2,000 points, and you have a, like, do you feel like it's fun shifting between those things, and is that a thing that, like, you feel like Shatterpoint should have, or do you feel like it's just not necessary?
I think, I forget what they're called in Age of Sigmar, weirdly enough, but in 40k it has like Combat Patrol, Strike Force, Incursion, Onslaught, I think are the levels.
I'm not going to remember that.
I think those are right. I don't remember.
I will believe you.
But, so like smallest to largest besides the Apocalypse format. But I think it is fun to kind of have a breadth of things when you're like, I want to play Age of Sigmar. You and your buddies can be like, well, how big?
Yeah.
How big are we going? And also if you're getting kind of like either just getting into something new, being like, well, I don't need a full army of this. Or if you have a lot of something and you're like, I'm just going to throw every single model I have on the table. I want to see what happens. Like it's fun to have diversity.
Yes, absolutely. And I think when I was first thinking about this was like, say, after when I went to the SoCal Open on Sunday, like almost nobody stayed to play games. Right? Like I played one casual game with Booker, which I'm pretty sure it let me cheat because he's just too nice. Because I was doing something wrong. I'm pretty sure he knew I was doing it wrong and just let me do it wrong anyway. But Booker, you're too nice to me. But that was one of the things that immediately drew me. Like, there isn't really a side format that really is drawing people in, where like they would like that excitement of that other thing.
Sure.
And the fact that we've been in this cycle with so few releases and some very clear things sitting at the top, that also makes the desire for a format that like makes you think about the game a little bit differently, or like spice things up in some sort of way would be important, because we know that Shatterpoint isn't going to be getting a whole ton of releases. Right. And so it is going to be a little bit on us to be like spicing up things for the community and making sure that people stay energized and have something to think about. Not that the list building in Shatterpoint is that complicated to begin with, but I don't know. You're not much of a list builder, but for me, I find how excited I am to play on Saturday is directly related to how much I was thinking about lists that week. Oh. Right? Like if I was off and on spending some time actively thinking about lists, like looking at Shatterpoint DB, like playing around with the cards and like trying to find something that I was excited to play, and then figuring out like, yeah, that's the thing I'm going to try this week, then I'm like super excited for Saturday. If I haven't really been thinking about it and been working on other things, and all of a sudden it's Friday night and I haven't really like figured out a list, and I'm like, am I just going to play what was in my case from last week? I find my motivation levels are very different. Fair. But is it like that for you, or is there anything? No? What? Care to elaborate?
I'm just not, I think I have got better about, I know how to list at least a little bit, but it's not really the aspect of things that I am really like gung-ho about.
Yeah.
I think I'm perfectly happy to get comfortable with something and really perfect it if I can, or just like, this is, I am an instantly like, what's the word? Like, sentimental.
Okay.
I'm instantly sentimental over things. So if I play with a list and something good happens, I'm like, these are my lists now. Even if I didn't make up the list.
You're like, that is my thing.
This team is my team, and I'm going to take them to the very bitter end. So I get more attached to stuff like irrationally. So I'm like, no, I gotta prove this, and I get real attached to things. So
okay, so even though like we have a very different approach, right, where you're much more sentimental about your models and it is much less about list building, I feel like there might be a hobby aspect for this too, when your shoulder is actually repaired. But right, if there was an alternate format and you're like, all right, well, I'm going to paint up this stuff specifically for this alternate format, and maybe like have a matching basing scheme, or like I'm painting up this new thing that is specifically for this format, that you would probably be excited about that.
That's fair. Yeah, that's my team for this. Yeah. That's a lot more likely from my end. Like, because I will and have painted the same model 2 or 3 times for different things.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the format, because this has been on my mind for months. I guess it's been more than a year where I've just been thinking about like alternate formats, and then this idea of like, well, how do you play either a smaller or larger game of Shatterpoint, and like, is that enough? And while I like demoing the game as the one squad game, that doesn't feel very balanced, right? Like, I think it would be fine if we were just like fucking around, or like we have like, if we're already at the game store and we're like, we got to take off in an hour.
Sure.
We could, and we're like, we would really like to play another thing. We could probably play like a one squad game. It'll probably be fine, but I don't think that one squad Shatterpoint works. I don't think it works in like, oh, we're going to actually like play a tournament or something that way. Like, I just don't think that functions. And so So I definitely thought about like ways to like do one squad with maybe like an extra support unit or yeah, I'd thrown around some ideas in my brain and like nothing quite clicked. So I was like, okay, well, let's think about the larger game then.
Sure.
Like going above 2 squads. And I'd considered like, okay, well, what is it like if you just go, we're going to play 2 squads, but then like both of the units get like an extra support? Or like, can you do it where you're like 2 squads, but you add another primary? Or you know, and nothing was quite clicking in my brain as like feeling like that was a good direction. I was like, okay, well, is the answer to just do 3 squads, right? Is that the answer? But I didn't feel like that was necessarily quite enough because I was feeling like, man, when I was thinking about that, I was like, 3 squads, if you get stuck with like 3 secondaries in a row or something in your order deck, right? You know, especially like on a flip, you're like beginning of struggle 3 and you're like secondary. I was like, that would kind of suck.
Fair.
And so I was like, it needs something else to spice that up a little bit. And that's where it hit me. I was like, Star Wars minis back in the day, you do 2 activations at a time. So it was back and forth. It wasn't, I activate my whole team like War Machine or Age of Sigmar, but you would do 2 activations. And I was like, that could be really cool in Shatterpoint because it could also be like this is 1 turn. So you only get to do your reactive abilities once.
Oh.
Right? And so you're like, I can only coordinated fire strain once over the course of these 2 activations because it's 1 turn. And then it's like 1 set of scoring. So you have a little bit more ability to like combo play or like, oh, I pulled this character who's maybe not a great activation, but I pulled them with this other character that is a really solid activation. And so like, I still want to feel like I can make a good play. And so these were some of the theories. And I was like, kind of putting it off, pitching it to the locals because, you know, just off and on always had like a pretty new person at the table. Sure. And like, how quickly do I want to like try to force a new person to play something different? But anyway, so that's just the basic concept of the format. Very simple, 3 squads, but 2 activations at a time. And for digging a little bit into the weeds, chose to do it where you reveal both cards and then choose to reserve one of them.
Oh.
Or if you already have something in reserve, you need to choose to use the reserve before you reveal the 2 cards.
Oh.
So you still got to reserve. We thought a few different ways about it, but like, let's keep it. There's too many mechanics that interact with the reserve. Like, needed to keep that fairly simple.
Sure.
So what are your opening thoughts? And do you have any opening questions for me?
I mean, you answered the 2 pressing ones I had of like, well, do you know who you're getting and who can you reserve? But
yeah.
Interesting. It's in the same, how do you deploy?
So deployment doesn't really change besides the fact that there's one more stage of deployment where you do the 3rd squad. I will say this is probably one of the things that I found most exciting about this was actually, I think deployment gets considerably more interesting, even though it's still simple, right? But like say we've just been testing on shifting priorities to begin with. But right, like in general in shifting priorities, you just always put your 2 squads halfway between both objectives. Well, now you actually could do that, and then you have another squad you could put anywhere you want. Or you could do 1 squad directly behind each objective.
Okay.
And so you always end up where you have multiple models potentially contesting each of the starting objectives. So, like, there is interesting ways that you could approach that differently.
Okay. And
it means if you have a character, say like a Vader or something like that, who really wants to not get stuck, not having a target, you could do them in the middle.
Sure.
And so I did find that I was immediately loving the deployment more. Even though it was still simple, it was still fast. It wasn't like MCP complicated.
Sure.
But I'm not ragging on MCP here. I think MCP just has very complicated deployment that is very subtle, and you can absolutely lose in deployment in MCP. And so if you aren't super into it, like you can get lost in the deployment step really easily, and it can take a long time in the wrong situation. This still felt fairly quick, but it was exciting to be like making a choice. Say I went first in my first game with it, right? Normally you're like, I don't make any decisions, right? If I'm going first, I'm picking a guy and they're going to counter deploy and my other guy goes on the other spot. This, I felt like I got to make actual decisions where I put someone down in a spot and was like, all right, now I want to see who you deploy where. Okay. And that still affected the other decisions. So deployment was immediately more interesting. I loved the deployment for this format.
Okay, so you deploy, you have the two dudes. Do you just do one full person and then the other full person, or?
Yep.
Okay.
So you reveal the two cards and you're gonna like kind of plan things out. I do think it's important not to spend too much time. Like, you don't want the game to drag on.
Sure.
So like, I was trying to be like a little assertive in the like just not spending too much time thinking out like the perfect moves, just so like it didn't drag on while we're testing this out. But in general, I found it was fun. You're like, okay, I got two cards. All right. You're just going, which one do I want to do first? Is there any like specific reason? Like, does one have healing? Does one to like move the other one forward? Like there was a turn where I pulled pawns and Shock T, and both of them could move each other to start things. And so there was this interesting, and I actually messed it up because what I wanted to do, I should have had Shock T go first and have her move 7 Scorch to remove the pin, and then have pawns be able to go, and then he'd be able to trigger their Rule 17 thing. And so I like actually messed it up, but I found those sort of things were actually very interesting. Where there was like, ooh, well, okay, I like both of these plays, and you're like, you see the directions that you want both of them to go. But you're like, okay, well, which one do I do first? Is there any reason to do one before the other? Sure. And so that part was interesting. I found that like it did add a little bit to the turn dynamic of just like giving you a little bit more opportunity to like kind of showcase strategy or like how you want to solve a particular problem. Okay.
How did it like you said you just played it on shifting, right? So nothing else changed.
Yeah, really. We've just played on shifting.
Did you find it was killier?
Well, I will say my first game I played against Triple Revenge, so probably not going to end up being killier in that situation. But that was one of my concerns. I was like, 1, is it going to be too killy? 2, are we going to like fill up the area around objectives? Right? Like, is it going to be where you just, because this has happened in a normal game of Shatterpoint, you're like, the whole area around that objective is just filled with bodies. How do I like get my character onto a point?
Sure.
But I will say that it didn't feel too killy. Again, I was running like 1.5 revenge because I was playing Luminara and Ahsoka. So I had like 1 genuine revenge trigger, and I just got to do some healing when a guy died. So I had like a little bit, but the other side had triple revenge, and that was one of my concerns is triple revenge going to be too powerful in this? Like, does there have to be some rule about like how often you can revenge? But the thing is, each revenge trigger has its own restrictions. Cassian's is once per turn. So multiple times in the game, I killed 3 guys in 1 turn.
Oh.
Because like over the course of the game, I would get characters down to 1, and then I'd have a turn where I'm like, this is my wounding turn. And so then I wound 3 guys at 1 Cassian trigger compared to the 3 guys. So your ability to actually do more wounds in a single turn actually mitigates it in a certain extent. Like Leia can be very strong because she can just keep moving and shooting. But you can manipulate. She's got to move towards the character who got the wound, and she can only target that character. Kanan doesn't get to trigger if you don't wound with an attack. So Wrecker or 7 Scorch Bomb or Bosk Bomb, all of these things, Sabine's bomb, there's ways that you can like bypass his altogether. And so I found that there was it felt like it was easier to kind of counter some of the revenge triggers.
Okay, well that makes sense. It folds in a little extra defense against that. I guess as long as you know what the card says.
Yeah, I definitely think that like triple revenge still might be just really strong in the format. And that is still like a thing that we're keeping an eye on. Like, definitely don't want that to just be like, okay, everybody plays triple revenge. Yeah. Because like that would be unfun. But like I said, like the fact that you get to manipulate things, and one of the problems with revenge, right, is you're like, I move up, I kill a dude, and then Mando moves on to the point. Well, that might be fine. I have another activation coming up, right? I could still shove Mando off the point afterwards, or force push him away, or just get another body on the point. You have a little bit more like play. You're like, okay, I'm gonna do the wound first, and then get someone else on there, or. You just got I use a body, I'm going to body block the ladder, then I'm going to do the wound. You get a little bit more play to try to counter these moves, was at least my initial feelings.
Because you do the scoring and objective holding at the end of both.
Yes, we don't want you to score twice in a turn.
No, that makes sense.
But we do you do the 2 activations and then you do the scoring. I will say, triple revenge does make turns a little bit long. Right, where you're like, I'm activating 2 guys, but you also sort of have when I wound 3 guys, you're like, well, you got 6 revenge triggers this turn.
Yeah, knocked over some dominoes. Had to watch them fall.
Yeah, you got to keep track of that stuff.
Yeah, well, I guess that adds another mental layer to the game of it was need a spreadsheet. Which triggers did I, acknowledge this turns?
Yeah, there was a little bit of there was some stuff that you got to keep track of, right? Where I trying to remember that I can't, it's not coordinated fire. It's the other one, but coordinated fire dash is what I'm trying to say. Remembering that I can't do that. Supporting fire. I don't know why supporting was not in my brain. But remembering that if I supporting fire dash on the first activation, that I can't do it on the second activation because it's a reaction, so it's once per turn. And so that was a little bit of keeping that in my brain. So it is maybe a thing where you're maybe use the priority token or something from your box and just go, hey, I've used that trigger, or something like that. Might be a thing. I was more finding that I was just learning, and I forgot some of my own triggers. I think the first couple times I did wounds, I forgot Luminara's I get to dash a dude.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple triggers that I was just forgetting just because there was a lot going on, new.
Oh yeah.
New
well, the more models you add, the more mental load it is to just remember what's going on. But that's part of the game once games get bigger is honestly, this will be decided on which one of us remembers our own rules.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before we want to move past it, I think the first thing that we noticed is that we were immediately excited for list building.
Oh.
Right? When I pitched it at the game store a few weeks back, I think for Jim, who's on the newer side, we were like, Jim, you just play whatever you want. If you're down to play this, you play whatever. Doesn't matter how busted it is, you can play Cassian or boss, we don't care. The rest of us were like, we're not going to do Cassian or boss for the time being, just because we know that they're getting nerfed. We don't need more time with them right now. Let's try some other things and just see if this gives us an excuse to put some models on the table that we haven't put on the table in a while, or what we come up with. And I immediately, Donovan messaged me an hour or 2 later and was like, dude, I haven't been this excited for list building in quite a while.
That's awesome.
Put that into teenager slang. That was me translating. I'm sure something teenager no cap list building. Got Riz.
That's okay. I don't know what was correct, but I know that was incorrect.
Probably. I'm just trolling. The huge teenager audience.
Yeah.
That we have. So anyway, just list building was fun because I just felt like I was solving a slightly different puzzle in my brain, where I was going, ooh, one of the things when we were just starting to talk about it, we were like, wait a second, is Lando really good in this format? Because you have less likelihood that Lando's the last card in the deck.
Sure.
Less likely if you pull him first and then you shuffle 10 cards that you get him again.
True.
And the ability for him to turn Mando into an Imperial.
Is there still only one Shatterpoint card?
Still only one Shatterpoint card.
Because double Shatterpoint would be really funny.
Oh yeah. I did consider that, but I think it's more important to have an even number of cards to start with because it gets complicated. To how you handle the situation when you get 2 odd numbers and you're at the last card in your deck.
3 Shatterpoint cards.
But no, 1 Shatterpoint card actually felt really solid. Something that I'll notice every single time in the test so far, I found shatterpointing was way more about where the model was at on the table as opposed to the most powerful model. Like, first game, for example, I had 7 Scorch and my opponent had Baze and Chirrut, right? So you're thinking most of the time those are your Shatterpoint dudes.
Sure.
Right? Neither of us Shatterpointed those the entire game.
Wow.
Because I felt like every time we were Shatterpointing, it was about who was in the best position to take a key objective.
Gotcha.
Or it was going, okay, well, I pulled this character, right, who's on the left side. So I need someone who's on the right side who can influence a point over there, or something like that. So I found that we did some slightly weirder Shatterpoints than maybe you'd normally expect in the meta of like Baze and Chirrut so good, 7 Scorch so good. We did not end up Shatterpointing them quite as often. So that part I was very surprising. That was one of my concerns was like, is it still just going to be like you always Shatterpoint the big dog? The big dog. But I found like where they were out on the table. And you usually have like a few more guys, right? And so the kind of decision-making process for Shatterpoint was a little bit more interesting. Not in like a major way, but I did like that part.
Out of curiosity, what do you call this Menage a Trois format?
Well, we're not calling it the Menage a Trois format.
What do you want me? It's three.
So had not locked in. So I was going to ask you, I actually meant to say it earlier on in the thing. So like playing one strike team is called Showdown, right? Then the Premier List format where you have, 4 squads is Premier Showdown. And so it's like, what do you call this? There's already like a 3 mirror. I was debating between whether we call it the Trilogy Showdown or Trilogy format or the Trinity Showdown or Trinity format. Do you have any thoughts between the...
Well, I mean, Star Wars is trilogies, so that makes more sense.
I only was like, does that like get confusing in the sense of like, does trilogy make people think original trilogy, or does it throw people off in any way?
I don't think so.
Right.
I think it's.
I was thinking we'd probably call it the trilogy.
Yeah,
the trilogy format, since you got 3, and you could play like Luke, Leia, Han.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's some fun aspects to that. I did want, so first game, I was like, you know what? I feel like in this format, the Force Repulse characters are going to be really good, right? Because there's going to be more characters on points.
True.
Right? And so I put Fifth Brother and Shaak Ti in my list and had them on opposite sides of the table. Going first, I pull Fifth Brother and Shatterpoint going first. And I was like, well, that is not what I wanted at all. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to shuffle the Shatterpoint back in, and like I'll live with Fifth Brother. Shuffle the Shatterpoint or draw the next card, Shaak Ti. So first thing I do is just move Shaak Ti and Fifth Brother onto the middle. I'm like, the whole fucking point of these characters was that I wanted to repulse some shit. And they're immediately just on points. So I thought that was kind of, and I knew when I was like, if I shuffle this Shatterpoint back in, I'm definitely getting Shaak Ti. Am I not? And that was my excellent shuffling skills. So
that's kind of hilarious.
But yeah, I do think there's a world where like a question in the format, like, do you always want like a Shaak Ti or a Fifth Brother? Like something that could like dislodge a bunch of characters? Is that like a really powerful, like, it seems like a very powerful thing in that format. Sure, yeah. And so there would be a question of like, are those characters like so important to it that you would only play with them? I don't think that's the case, but I like the idea of having both of them for some flexibility. Do you have any other questions about it?
I don't know. I'm curious to play it because I feel like having the extra bodies on the board maybe lets you play strategically differently than you can with fewer. So I would be curious to see if that actually holds up or not. Yeah,
I will say that it didn't. List building felt significantly improved, or not improved, but just different. Like it's touched my brain in a different way, right? Where I was like, "Don't make it dirty."
I'm sorry.
It just like I felt like I was looking at my models a little bit differently, and like one of the first things I was like, "Oh, well, what if I play the list with like 6 stormtroopers?" And then I was like, "Well, I could only actually do the." the stormtrooper sergeant's bonus dice, like, once per turn. So that's maybe like not as cool, but it felt like I had a slightly different problem to solve. And I was like, what makes what makes a good list in this format? Like, do I want 2 force point? Like, there was a lot of interesting questions, and it was fun to like, ooh, I've got a totally different problems to solve, which was
puzzling your way through it,
which was fun. And then, like I said, I really like deployment, but I will say, gameplay wise, as different as I thought 2 activations would be, as soon as we were doing it, it just felt like Shatterpoint to me. Like, it didn't. Gameplay-wise, it didn't feel supremely different. And I think that's okay. I think one of the goals with any alternate format is that it should still fundamentally feel like the game.
Sure.
Right? If you're trying to change it too much, then probably means that you don't like the game you're playing.
Fair.
But I will say, once I was in it and you're just like activating 2 characters, it just felt like you had like a little bit more tools to like solve a problem, and you're getting like more big swings.
Okay.
Right? Because you're just like, if one character fails to take a point, you still could take points with the other card flip. Fair. And so it felt like one bad activation wasn't necessarily quite as bad. But it was still, like I said, it was a little interesting, but I actually thought that the dual activation was going to feel more weird than it did.
Was it significantly longer?
I will. I think it easily can be longer. I would suspect that, like, if I were to like run a big event for this, like tomorrow, I would say you probably need 2.5 hour rounds as opposed to 2. Yeah. And that's a thing that we're gonna keep an eye on. Like, do you need to do something and like mess with the momentum more, because you could easily just go, hey, we're going to play this, but you start with like 1 extra momentum already gained or something. There's ways that you can tweak the timing of it. You could have mission critical start sooner. There's a bunch of things that you could do. But I feel like as soon as you get 2 pretty experienced people who've tried the format a couple of times, I would not be surprised if you could still knock it out in 2 hours.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. You do get to like just activate more stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's just another thing that relies on you knowing your own cards.
Yes. Yeah, I think knowing your own stuff, like obviously if you're learning new stuff at the same time, I probably wouldn't use this format to learn. Like that probably isn't a good idea as much as possible. Like I don't want to like get the Balin box and then immediately play this.
Trilogy.
But I think this does have a lot of potential, and I still have a lot of things that I want to keep an eye on about triple revenge and like how many triggers, like what happens if you're doing like a Vader, shuffle Vader, right, and Luminara, and like Vader kills something and you're moving multiple guys, like, and you have Iden, like, there's also wounding triggers, right? Like there's a bunch of triggers that you can get, like I kill someone and I do a whole bunch of stuff. Like, Anakin, for instance, like Anakin killing someone and getting to move every secondary and every support when you have 6 of them, right? And you could have Anakin, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Luminara, right? Where you're like, I am moving everyone, and then I'm also moving like 2 other characters 2 more times. Like, is that too much? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of things, but the fact that there's a lot of things we're going, I got to keep my eye on this and this and this and this. That means that there's probably some cool things to try.
Yeah. And like, if you were able to figure that out and it works, it feels really good. So,
yeah, it was probably the most fun I had playing in a while, to be totally honest. Like, just like the game, it just felt just refreshing enough. It still felt like Shatterpoint, but I came out of the game being like, God, that was really fun.
Nice.
And like, also I want to shout out to Jim, who is the first person playtesting it with me, who is on the newer side, but had been playing MCP for quite a bit. But like when I demoed Shatterpoint for them, they were just like kind of clicking. It was clicking with them in a way. They're like, sure. Oh, this is hitting my brain in the right way. And he's been getting really into it, playing more games. And he was like about to do a play with K2SO to shove Fifth Brother. And then I remembered, I was like, wait a second, Fifth Brother is maximum range 1 from the ladder if you were going to shove if your plan is to come at this angle, you're not going to be able to shove me at the angle where, because he's basically like on one side of a gantry. So on that side, it's really easy to shove him off, but the other side, it's not. And I was like, if you want to reserve him, go ahead. I don't want to trap you into an activation. And he like looked at the board for a little bit, and then he came up with this good play. He's like, instead of going to that ladder, he's going to go to this other ladder, and he just went up halfway. So he wasn't engaged with anybody and had the shove angle. And I was like, Jim, that was legit. I did not see that play at all. I love that. And so like going up the ladder gave him just enough. We were like, yeah, you're going to have the angle to shove him off the other side now. Because he didn't need K2SO to get on the point because Chewie was already on the point. So he just had to get Fifth Brother off of the point. And so I was like, ooh, nice play. So just shout out to Jim. Like he had a really like solid K2SO play. That was a little frustrating. But yeah, I'm excited to try it more. We're at least, I imagine we're probably going to at least do a couple more weeks of it, because we don't have, unless the errata just suddenly drops out of nowhere. But we're definitely doing it this Saturday, and if everybody's still having fun with it, we'll keep trying it out a little bit. But I don't know. I feel like this could be a Sunday side event thing for like an LVO or something. Where you're like, all right, depending on what day you do like a team event and that sort of thing. I don't know. I would be, so far with not a ton of testing, this would be a thing that I would be excited to like play at a convention. Like, oh, do a GT and then, oh, I'm not in the top 8. Well, okay, on that day there's this event. I would be excited to play in this. And the thing that we didn't really talk about was that when you're like working on a side format, because like Iz came up in War Machine where there was actually it was an LVO that I wanted to go to, and there was 2 formats, and the problem was I had to bring like totally different stuff for both. Fair. And I'm like, I don't want to bring 2 bags of minis. Like these were entire armies. So there is an element of like, if you have to bring so much different stuff, then it doesn't work. But I felt like this would be pretty easy, even in the small A case, where I could bring, even if it was totally different than my normal team, bringing 4 squads and then 3 squads is very doable. And there's a good chance you're going to have some overlap in there. So I think it would not be crazy. This doesn't feel like it's a crazy thing to bring to a convention either.
I dig it.
I don't know. Do you have like, does this like make you jump out? You're like, who would be my 3 squads?
Ooh.
Would you go all droids?
Oh, all droids?
Yeah.
Ooh, maybe. I mean, I could.
Add the rift box to your OG Grievous and Luminara kit?
Because I haven't really been able to paint, I haven't like thought too much about like this stuff. I painted the shark.
Yes.
But I never painted the droids.
Oh, I remember. So I remember you dry brushing them and breaking one of them.
I broke both of them in the same spot. And then I got pissed about it.
You're just too violent to your droids. They need to. I didn't realize that you hadn't gotten through the droids. Well, you could borrow my Aqua droids if you'd like. They did a good job for Chris, so I feel like for Pure. I'm excited. I did mention this to Aubrey, and I think I mentioned it to Dizzard as well. And so I was starting to put it out there if anybody else wanted to like test it and get their fingers in it. Because of like, if we got feedback, I was like, hey, this is a fun other format to mess around with. And if right now I've heard that there are some communities that are kind of like, I think I'm going to wait to play more Shatterpoint until the errata. And I think this is a fun thing to do right now. Again, we just agreed, like me, Donovan, Ryan, etc. Like we're just not going to play Boss and Cassian until the errata comes around, so we can kind of feel things balanced out. But yeah, this was fun. I'll be honest, I wanted to talk about it last week.
Yeah.
Right? But I was like, no, it is not the right time to like mention it, but it was on my brain a lot last week.
That's fair. I mean, well, since my week turned up on its head, I technically don't have to be at work on Saturday.
Really? You could come play Shatterpoint with us?
I could.
That would be dope. You should definitely come play Shatterpoint with us.
There's a slight chance I'll have to go to the show, but very, very much larger chance that I can come play Shatterpoint.
I will bring templates and dice and models. You don't even have to bring anything.
I don't have to bring anything, just my wonderful self.
I could just, if you just wanted to like come show up and play, I could totally supply you with full droids.
Ayo.
I was also thinking about like lists for you of like,
oh really?
Like triple lady primary stuff. I was like, what was one of the first things? It was Jin, Leia, and who was the other lady that I was sticking in there? It wasn't Ahsoka. But I was like trying to like think of a cool like triple lady primary list.
I love Jin, Leia, so that might be the vibe.
Yeah, they got cool stuff going on. God damn, I thought I had it was Hera. It was Hera from the Spectre box. It was Hera, Leia, and I was like, give you the 3 rebel ladies.
I like it.
I thought that because that was one of the things I was like, Hera might be really good in this, right? Where she always gets to activate with other stuff, so you don't have to deal with a dead activation. Her big cover bubble, like she gives cover at range 4 to rebels. I was like, that could be really cool.
I would be down to come play that. Yeah. I again, assuming nothing more goes catastrophically wrong this week.
Yes, you had kind of a crazy week. But yeah, I like even if we had odd numbers, like I will happily like sit out and like watch some games and see you guys rock out. However it all works out. Because it's been a fun little change of pace. I'm excited. If you were listening to this episode and you're kind of going, nah, all other format. Like, I totally get it. Like, I do think it's important that this format feels close enough to the normal game that you still feel like you're just practicing Shatterpoint, which I do think that it achieves. Or I do think this is a good way of like fitting in, say like Chewie is a great example. If you're playing all rebels, you're like, if I'm just playing 2 squads, like I want like Ezra and Callus but like, I do think it can be a really fun way of you're like, well, I've been playing Leia and Cassian. I love that list. Well, like throw Jin in as like the other squad and just like see how you like layer some of these other synergies. You still get to practice these models.
Sure.
And it might inspire your other premier list down the road where you're like, ooh, I actually really liked how these things synergize. Does that affect my list building down the road? But if you're listening to this and you're super excited and you're going to try it out yourselves, feel free to message me if you have any questions about like how we're playing something out in a weird situation or anything like that. I'm happy to answer questions. Shoot me a message directly. Welcome to tag me. I'm happy to answer any questions. Like I said, I do think us having a really good side format for cons is also a really good goal. So I remember you and I had a conversation about like MCP side events for you when you were talking about your first LVO before we were doing Shatterpoint. And like having other things to play in other days is important for that full con experience.
I have curiosity, like you said, who is doing the Shatterpoint stuff? LVO, do you know?
Todd and Aubrey run the stuff. I know that Todd, like, because he's doing so much streaming stuff, like, I don't know if it'll be a thing where like Todd runs the streaming, Aubrey runs the tournament, or like how that'll exactly play out for them. But I do know that they have, it's the Arizona team basically under Todd's guidance, runs the thing. But it'll be some combination of Todd, Aubrey, Izzy, the boys. So I guess that they're like, I probably have to pitch it to them, right? And be like, hey, this could be a format for whatever day you're not doing the team event or something. But I think if they're not doing the team event on Sunday, I think this would be a really cool format to potentially do like during Top Cut, where like most people don't have a tournament now, right? It's cut to top 8. I think this could be the perfect thing. You're like, all right, you just got through, the main rounds of the GT and everything, right? Like say if they were doing team on Thursday or so team on Friday, GT on Saturday, Top Cut on Sunday, right? If it's something like that, or there's LVO invitational stuff. I have no idea what the schedule is, but if there's a spot to fit something in and you want another game for people who are there to play Shatterpoint, my gut right now is this this could be the thing. More testing required.
I can figure out like some sort of custom trophy.
Ooh.
The Trilogy trophy. And then maybe incentivize Aubrey. He also has ADHD. I'll show him a shiny thing and he'll be like, I'm in. Because that's why I'm due.
Yeah, actually, now that you're thinking about it, like, it'd be kind of cool because you could do, like a 3-tiered trophy with like 3 characters on it. Like, there's there'd be some fun ways to do a trophy for this.
Just saying.
All right. Well, do you have any closing thoughts?
I'm tentatively looking forward to this weekend.
Oh yeah, me too. I need to figure. I have a Mando list put together. Trying to remember what was in it, but I was like, gotta get this Mando in his like thermal detonator box.
You know, I was about to say I'm selfishly hoping you and I get to play together, but now I don't want to.
You don't want to play against my Mando with thermal detonators?
It sounds a little scary. Not gonna lie.
Well, we could always go in a little early. And like make sure that we get to like try it out and then depending on how your shoulder is feeling, if you wanted to sit out for a game or you're like, oh, I want to get in another game or
solid.
Yeah, we could
figure it out.
I would love for us to play some Trilogy.
Heck yeah.
And have you go undefeated in the Trilogy format.
Well, I will pending be at LVO, so.
Okay. Sweet. All right. Well, to everyone watching, I appreciate you guys sticking around for all of this. And I know we've been doing like some like just very like community building stuff, which I know never necessarily like hit on like, I want to talk about lists and stuff. I guess before we close out, I'll say like the list that I played. So I was originally going to do Ahsoka, Luminara, and Vader. And then I realized that I forgot my Vader cards when I was putting everything else into the box. And so I ended up doing Ahsoka, Luminara, Hunter. And so Hunter had, I believe, Shaak Ti and Arfs. Luminara had Wrecker and Fifth Brother. And then Ahsoka had Pawns and Seven Scorch. So it's like a good mixture of tools. I wanted to be able to solve a bunch of different problems. And I thought that was super fun. I think there's a lot of ways that you could like tweak that. It was meant to be with Vader. But like I said, I even got to like Shatterpoint Wrecker because there was just a point where I was like, wait a second. Here, we'll end on this note. I ended up having to look up a rule because I ended the game in a way that I'd never ended the game before. I was 3 points away from winning. But there's triple revenge triggers. So I just killed 3 things to get 3 momentum.
Oh, wow.
So like them moving onto points and stuff didn't matter.
Oh, because you...
And so I was just like killing stuff. So I was winning on a momentum trigger.
Wow.
Instead, and so like, but there was a bunch of triggers that happened and like K2SO could even like unravel the game, right? Like he could like subtract or he like moves the score when he dies. But because I killed him to end the game, I get the momentum before he gets to do the other triggers. So that was fun. I was like, there's also this wildness of you're like, well, I need this X amount of points to win. But you can gain a lot of momentum in a particular turn.
Yeah.
So there was some fun stuff. But anyway, I think Wrecker is rarely reserved. I think he's my boy this episode.
He's your boy? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wrecker and Omega, rarely reserved.
I like it.
Later, nerds.
Comm signal lost.